Welcome back to another installment of Sabres vs. the Atlantic. If this is your first time tuning in, what we do in this series is pit the Buffalo Sabres up against their Atlantic division foes. Last week we went after the 8th place in the division, Boston Bruins. And this week we're taking on the team, the first of 6 teams that finished ahead of the Sabres in the standings last season. That would be the Detroit Red Wings, who actually is the only other team in this division to have missed the playoffs, besides the Bruins and the Sabres. Everybody else 5 and up, they made the roster, or made the dance. So, the Yzer plan. We are, let's see here, 6 years into it, right? Didn't he go back in? Was it after the 2018-19 season? I think that was the first year he went back to the Red Wings and became the GM. So 6 years. How are we feeling about the Yzer plan at this point? I know we make jokes about it, but genuinely, where they stand, what's the general vibe? Do you feel like they're making progress, or are they kind of stuck in the mud here?
I feel like it's kind of like a Kevin Adams situation, you know? You've been at this job for as long as you have, and you haven't made the playoffs. It's like, how much could you really, write home about the team? I mean, it's kind of a glass house situation with us talking about it because it's like we're no better. But at the same time, it hasn't been great. I don't think it's been anything spectacular.
Yeah, they're in a stalemate right now. If his name wasn't Stevie Yzerman, he would not be in that GM chair anymore because the Yzer plan has not done anything for the organization. It's just it's brought a bunch of old men
come
onto
off
the
a
team.
little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely the I guess aura that he carried walking back into that organization has definitely faded a bit. Probably more than a bit. I mean, there's probably people out there. If you did a GM power rankings, he's probably sitting in the bottom 10. This has definitely not gone to plan. I know a lot of discussion has always been had around the fact, when he first came back and they basically tanked those few seasons, they didn't wind up with the first or I think second overall pick in any of the drafts. They had really bad lottery luck. But as we get into recent seasons, they've kind of, this is kind of the core they're working with. Last season, obviously, Lucas Raymond had the huge breakouts. Moritz Seider took big steps. Simon Edvinsson was great in his rookie season. And as always, Dylan Larkin still continues to be probably one of the more underrated players in the league. But what did it result in? A 39-35-8 record. Good for 86 points. So in the playoff race for sure, but still 5 points out of that second spot. I believe, the year before this past year, they had 91 points, and that was obviously the year they missed by a point or maybe 2 points. They've definitely been a solid team, but last season was one that was, surrounded with some mediocre play. I mean, they start the season with Derek Lalonde, and, from the first game of the regular season to December 27th, they had a record of 13-8-4, which was actually the same record as the Sabres. But then after that, they had a 95-point pace till the end of the season. So a very up and down year. In entering next season, I wouldn't say they kind of blew down the doors in terms of how, the improving their roster. I don't know. Do you have that same overall vibe?
No, yeah, I feel like they're just rearranging deck chairs here. It's they didn't really get a big piece in free agency. Not to say that's, always a good thing. Going out and attacking in free agency, we see
that's
how that turns out.
That's what they've done the past
sometimes.
few years too.
And what has it netted them? It hasn't netted them a playoff appearance. They got close 2 seasons ago now. Already 2 seasons ago. And they lost out on the last day. But yeah, I don't know. Outside of it's a very Sabres-y roster. I feel like they have those few good pieces, but everything else just screams bad.
Yeah, I don't think they've done enough to support their young stars. I mean, look who Reed
Yes.
Sider's projected to be playing with again. Like,
Ben Sherratt.
yeah,
This was an issue in year one of his contract, where people were like, "Hey, he's solid, but probably don't want him on your first pair." And we'll get more into that once we get to the lineup comparisons. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of how this team looks going in.
they're a good comparable to the Sabres. I mean, for probably the past, I don't know, 5 years, it was the Senators, Red Wings, and Sabres all felt like in the same boat. The Senators finally made a step. The Red Wings have been close to taking a step. The Sabres have been close to taking a step, but only the Senators have really gotten past, actually making the playoffs. So they're a pretty comparable team to us.
Well, let's get right into what they did this past offseason in terms of how they did improve their team and what they lost. So to start things off, we'll start with their additions because they made one, I think, big addition that, to a key piece of their team. They got John Gibson. And Gibson was very good for the Anaheim Ducks last season. And, there wasn't really a lot of goalies on the market this summer. I mean, I'm trying to think who, in terms of starting goalies, what else was out there. It wasn't a lot. I think it could easily be argued they got the best one that ended up moving. I mean, last season with the Ducks, he started 28 games, went 11-11-2, a .912 save percentage, 2.77 goals against average. A pretty solid year, all things considered. And for the Red Wings, who have kind of had a lot of ups and downs with their goaltending, I think that's definitely the guy that's coming in seemingly to alleviate a lot of their issues. On the departure side of things, going back in that Gibson trade was obviously Peter Mrazek, who they got at the previous deadline and was just kind of with them till the end of the season. So I guess not really a lot lost there. Jeff Petrie, who was a mainstay, an everyday player in their top six defense. Tyler Mott, Craig Smith, two guys who played in their bottom six. So, not a lot, no big departure to really look at and be like, I wonder how they're going to survive without them. And then going back to the additions, Mason Appleton was probably their biggest signing of free agency. That was a 2-year deal. James Van Riemsdyk, solid veteran add, but as we'll get to the lineup comparison, it seems like he might get top 6 minutes.
I can't believe he's still in the league. How old is this guy? Isn't he his late 30s?
34, 35. I don't know if it's late
Really?
30s.
He's still that young? I feel like he's been around forever.
It does feel like he's definitely getting up there. Something interesting they did in the past few days, actually, I think it was in the last week. Travis Hamonic. That's an interesting one, for sure. And then obviously the player who, we've discussed a lot about, Jacob Bernard Docker, somebody who they picked up for their defensive group. So, from the offset, I think they definitely had a plus offseason in terms of, I think, additions. Obviously, Gibson kind of carries the load there, but I think, if you weigh Appleton, Bernard Docker, and JVR to Mott, Craig Smith, and Jeff Petrie, I think you upgraded there.
I would say it would be an upgrade too. If anything, it would be a slight upgrade. I'm not super high on Van Riemsdyk anymore. But revamping a forward group could do a lot just for chemistry. So this could work out for them. I'm just not seeing enough support to support their superstars.
Yeah, I mean Gibson's a good move, but I don't know. None of these really big needle movers. I feel like They made good additions, but nothing significant enough to really change my overall opinion on this team.
I think John Gibson's a great ad.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely an upgrade in net
I
over
think
Peter
he's
Mrazek.
I think he's interesting because I think, especially last season, considering the team he played on and the environment he played in, like the Ducks are pretty comparable to the Red Wings, I think, at least in terms of defense. So, when we get to the Detroit Red Wings defense, I think that's definitely the weakness of their team, but he's dealt with that a little bit. But then again, goalies are voodoo. Who the hell knows how he reacts? He only played 29 games last year. He kind of was the backup to, or not. I would say Lucas Dostal took the job from him. So I guess we'll see how he does in more of a, they're definitely gonna lean on him a bit more.
I mean,
let's get into some of their
he's
more
getting up there in age
key
too.
storylines. Unless JP
I was
has
just
something.
saying, he's 32.
Yeah, he's 32.
Like his
I know,
best
obviously
years are
Christian
behind
was
him,
asking.
so.
Obviously, Christian was asking. JVR is 36.
That makes more sense.
I mean, it's more of what Yzerman does. He brings in these old guys. Like it doesn't exactly he doesn't exactly bring in young talent.
Yeah, I mean the Hamonic thing is just.
I'm sure Senators fans are really happy to see that move.
I think I saw some Senators fans joking like how in the past, like the Red Wings' plan for their defense was adding 2 Senators, Bernard Docker, and now Hamonic, and it would be really funny because the whole thing was JBD didn't get a ton of playing time there because of Travis Hamonic, if Detroit kind of fell into the same mistake. Because I think the Hamonic thing is fine if he's a 7th, but if he's their everyday 6th, or if him or Justin Hole are if him or Justin Hole are the everyday 6th over
oh my God, how
Bernard
many ass defensemen they have? Justin Hall too.
They still got him. He's still
Oh
there.
my God, I remember when Leafs fans were celebrating him leaving. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's an interesting defense group, which is why it's one of our 3 key storylines. I guess we can go from the bottom up. Yeah, I got some concerns about the defensive unit.
Why? What happened?
Well, if we want to take a peek at the projected lineups, Ben Sherratt is still on the top pair. He's still on the top pair. And, Seider, there's been a lot of discussion about Moritz Seider and how, a lot of times the analytical numbers are bad. But he's also given the worst usage in hockey, like the toughest usage. And last season that took a step, but he spent more time with Simon Edvinsson, who was great. But now they're seemingly going to split them up again, and it's like, is Sherratt back with Seider? Is that going to work out well? It's just, I don't know. And not to mention, your third pair, Eric Gustafsson was very bad for them last season. And while I like Bernard Docker's good, I think the 3 of us, that's a good addition for them for their third pair. It's solid. But if they start playing Travis Hamonic or Justin Hole there, then I think we have some issues.
I was gonna say I wanted the Sabres to keep Bernard Docker. Don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is if you deploy him with a really bad 6th defenseman, in Ottawa, wasn't he already getting the Jacob Bryson treatment? He was in and out of the lineup a lot.
I mean, they waived him at one point, I believe.
Yeah, it's don't get me wrong. NHL players are all good hockey players, but I don't think he's the type of guy who could really bolster a third pair. He could prove me wrong. He could completely prove me wrong.
I think we can definitely agree that he looked very strong last season when he was playing with Owen Power. And he showed he could play up with him. But, if he's in, if he's playing with Simon Edvinsson, I think that's something he can do. But can he, if Eric Gustafsson has a bad season again, is he going to be able to kind of salvage that third pair? I think you bring up a good point. I don't know if he's that type of defenseman. Additionally, obviously we spent a lot of time on John Gibson. is he that starting goalie they've been looking for? You know, Cam Talbot was solid for them last season, but probably not what they were looking for overall. You know, Ville Husso was a failed experiment a number of seasons ago. It's been very up and down. I mean, James Reimer was another guy that they had signed, and he didn't have the greatest Red Wings tenure. Is Gibson going to be able to be the 50-game starting goalie that they've looking for? You know, it's impossible to really predict because, you know, we talk about Gibson's last season, which was really good. He also had some not so good seasons with the Ducks as well. You know, so very, very hot and cold, and that's what goalies are. It's tough. It's tough to predict. This one I can't really give a solid opinion on.
I mean, they had Alex Lyon too. Like, they've just had a rotating door of goalies, and I feel like at least now they know who their starter is, where they've been trying to figure out who that guy was for years.
Yeah. I mean, I still think they do need to figure that out because, you know, a goalie could just not pan out. But I'll say in John Gibson's defense, he's been on a lot of pretty bad Ducks teams. And, you know, your defense in front of you could help you a lot in the save percentage department. And I think you'll have a good year. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I think I just put 2 and 2 together. This defense core isn't that good.
Wow.
Okay, well, who knows? I think
John
Gibson. I think John Gibson's a fine starter.
I think if Gibson does struggle, I think we're definitely looking at the Red Wings defense as a key part of that. You know, I don't think it's going to be a thing where they're losing games maybe primarily because of him. And I also like if Gibson isn't the 50-game guy or even maybe like a 40-game guy, I think him and Talbot, that's like probably one of the better duos, or at least I feel like that's one of the duos where the backup can come in and kind of ride the wave for a few games, maybe get hot. You know, he did that for them last year, so I don't hate the starting goalie tandem. I think Gibson it's a solid bet for them, even if it doesn't really work out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And the last one is, you know, is this Todd McClellan bump that they got last year? Is it real, or is it more of a, you know, 1 year, new coach, winning streak sort of trend? I mean, it wasn't, you know, like I said, he got hired in December, and I think it was immediately after that, they went on like a 7-game winning streak, got themselves pretty close to 500, and then played some 500 hockey, then had another big 7-game winning streak, and then sort of tapered off in the closing games of the season. You know, he's someone I think people look at kind of like, you know, Peter Laviolette, where it's like, okay, it's not an exciting or really sexy coaching hire, but it's definitely a guy who's experienced and tenured, and I think we saw how that impacted that team. So I guess we'll see what happens with, you know, he's going to have a full training camp now. They targeted players that, you know, seemingly would fit in well with his system. So I guess the big question is, you know, is what we saw last season going to continue? Because like I said, when he came in, 95-point pace.
Yeah,
he had solid work.
He had some pretty good seasons with the Kings before he got fired. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Kings had a above 500 record when they let him go.
Yeah, he was just perennially. They were just a team that couldn't really get far. Was he the coach that? No, I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of because he had a run with the Oilers. That's what I'm thinking, right?
Or the Sharks or the Oilers?
Wasn't McClellan an Oilers coach?
He was a Sharks coach. I know that. I don't know if he was the Oilers coach. I think he was. Yeah, he was. He was coaching McDavid's rookie year to 2018-19.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think a trend you see around the league everywhere is once you hire a new coach, you see a little bit of a bump, and then it kind of, you know, regresses back to the mean. But I think McClellan's a good hire for this group. I think the players that they specifically went out and targeted will work well in his system. I just don't know how well it's going to translate to winning hockey games, at least against like really good teams. But that's to be remain seen. I don't think if the team doesn't do well, I don't think it's going to be because of Todd McClellan. I think it's going to be because of the talent that they don't have on the roster.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's not the most exciting hire, but it's like a safe hire, and I think, I think their floor is raised just by him being there, which I think we saw last season. And I was also confused because of his tenure with the Kings. I didn't know if he was there. I was just getting timelines mixed up, and I was thinking about like his playoff track record. He was the San Jose coach in the 2014 playoffs. Do we remember what he did then?
Was that the year that they swept Vancouver?
No.
Or is that before? I think that I'm thinking of a
They got
further
reverse
year.
swept.
Oh.
Yeah, they went up 3-0 on the Kings, and then the Kings came back and won that series and then won the Cup.
Jesus.
And the next season, they finished 5th in the Pacific, missed the playoffs, and then he was canned.
The reverse sweep.
Last time it ever happened. All right. With that out of the way, let's get into the real meat of the conversation. The forward lineup, or not the forward lineup, the whole entire lineup comparisons. So for our pure audio listeners, I'll read off the lineups as always, starting with the Sabres. And before I read these off, as always, these are projected via the Daily Faceoff. So if you don't think they have a good read on the situation of both teams, I think it's pretty accurate with the Sabres. But obviously, I really don't. I don't totally know with the Red Wings, so blame them. From the Sabres side of things, their first line: Benson, Kulik, Thompson, then Zucker, Norris, Tuck, Doan, McLeod, Quinn, Greenway, Krebs, Danforth. On defense, Byram and Dahlin, Power and Kesselring, Samuelson and Timmins. And in net, obviously, you have Luukkonen and Lyon. Your extras are Malenstein, Bryson, and Zach Jones. On Detroit's side of things, you got Van Riemsdyk on the top line with Larkin and Raymond, DeBrincat, Casper, and Kane, Rasmussen, Comfer, and Appleton, and then Soderblom, Kopp, and Berggren. On defense, you've got Sherratt and Seider as your top pair, Evanson and Johansson as your second pair, Gustafsson and Bernard Docker on your third. Then your goalies, Gibson and Talbot, with Watson, Hull, and Hamonic as your extras. So, as always, what's the general vibe here? What do you see in between these two lineups?
You know what? Now that I see it on paper, I don't hate their forward group as much as I may have came off.
It's
beginning.
not, it's like the ceiling isn't super high, and there's, I think, a very clear issue. Like James Van Riemsdyk being your top line left wing is a problem. They needed a top 6 forward going into this offseason. That's definitely something they didn't really address. It's definitely not the strongest top line because of Van Riemsdyk. But otherwise, yeah. I mean, dude, Andrew Kopp was, I think, I don't want to say he was on the chopping block, but he was receiving some criticism from Detroit fans, and then McClellan came in, and he was fantastic. And then he got hurt, but now here he is, and he's their fourth line center. And Soderblom and Berggren, they're pretty solid players, and it's just a very safe forward lineup, but it's not very bad.
It doesn't scream, this team's gonna make a deep run in the playoffs. Imagine if during the season they assembled a line of Van Riemsdyk, Comfer, and Kane. That's the real unction. That'd be crazy. That'd be the AARP line.
I'm sure people that know us, we've had a lot to say over the years about Patrick Kane's, like him being in the top 6. You might think I'm glossing over that. DeBrincat, Casper, and Kane, they were really good last season.
They worked well together.
Casper had over 20 goals as a rookie. I mean, he was great. They were able to get DeBrincat off of Larkin's line, and it didn't feel forced. We'll see. Time is undefeated, so we'll see if Kane, if this is the season where everything really, really drops off. I mean, I know the 5v5 impacts took a bit of a hit last year, but it was a good second line. So yeah, I don't hate the forward group, and I feel pretty comfortable saying, we're going to be talking a lot about the Sabres center spine, especially with Thompson not being projected there. Yeah, Detroit's got a better spine, purely just because Dylan Larkin is better than any option the Sabres have, but also, I think 2, 3, 4, I think Casper, Comfer, and Kopp gives you more than Norris, McLeod, and Krebs.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
No, yeah, I'd agree
it
with that.
sticks out to me is their center spine. I think that's a really solid center spine. And then they got Raymond and DeBrincat. Can never say his name, but they got
It's always
those two star wingers. So that's what I'm looking at. Those two players and their center core, and it's a very solid forward group. I don't think it has the highest of ceilings, but I think it has a high floor. I think it's very solid. Casper is probably only going to get better. I think it's safe to say they probably have a better, at least as of going into the season, I would say they have a better forward group, because there's a lot more questions about some of our players, even though there might be more projected talent in the future, hopefully, with Kulik and Benson, and if Quinn can return to form, I think we might have more talent, but I think the Red Wings have the higher floor forward group.
Yeah, I like the word safe. It is a very safe forward group. I definitely agree. I guess I have to backtrack just a little bit because I did a little smack talk at the beginning. I would definitely say that this forward group probably does have an edge over the Sabres. Definitely is more proven and is definitely, again, the safer option to go with. I would say that the Sabres forward group does have a higher ceiling, but we've been saying that for a few years now. We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
So
also much lower floor.
Yeah,
much lower floor.
So what about the defense?
Oh my goodness.
Their defense.
Just look at the extras. Hall and Hamonic.
I there's play because Seider. I do think Seider's a good player, but I
So
think
do I.
pairing him with Ben Sherratt is just how are we still doing this in 2025?
It just reminds me of previous year Sabres when it was just Donnelly and Power and then other scraps. That's all I feel like it is.
I mean, Johansson had a good rookie season, and I like Bernard Docker, and I'm really high on Edvinsson, but Gustafsson was really, really bad, and they kept him. Sherratt, it's just the Sherratt thing. I feel like if they just got someone serviceable, then I think it fixes it. It's just those two are always so bad together, and that's the pair you're going to have out there 25 minutes a night. And, Seider just hasn't brought Sherratt up with him whenever they've played together.
It's
it's
a pretty heavy job.
It's a heavy job, especially in those minutes. So it's not like I'm blaming him. It's not like I'm calling him. It's not like he's at fault. It's just, he hasn't been able. When Bowen Byram is similarly kind of a question mark because the impacts aren't always the greatest, but him and Dahlin can handle the minutes they're put in because Rasmus Dahlin drags him up. And, I think they're, Detroit's first pair is just, it's going to be an issue if Sherratt's on there the entire season. And then, you maybe solve that by putting Edvinsson in place of that, and that way you have a really good first pair. But then your bottom four, you don't really have any, the bottom four is significantly hurt if you put Edvinsson and Seider together. It's like putting Power and Dahlin together. It's just the trickle-down effect. It's not great.
A lot of SSON last names in that defense core. Edvinsson,
Yeah, really?
Johansson,
What
Gustafsson.
are they building over there?
What are they cooking? What are they cooking? A little hyphenation action too? Bernard Docker? What are they cooking?
But yeah, I don't think. I think maybe you can argue because I think Edvinsson is probably a little bit ahead of Power at this point. I think you can maybe argue the second pair looks better, but I think the Sabres' first pair is clearly better, and I think the third pair is better just because I think Timmins and Bernard Docker. I think you can call them a wash, I guess, but I still think Samuelson's a better player than Gustafsson is, at least if you're going off of last season.
I have to disagree with you. I think Power Kesselring is better than Edvinsson Johansson. I think Power gets a very bad rap just because, he plays for this crest, unfortunately.
I'm trying to be partial to Detroit because, I don't want it to be, come off as we're being too biased, but as a Sabres fan,
I'm going to be biased all day.
As a Sabres fan, I probably do take the second pair. Yeah, I guess. I think Power and Edvinsson are a wash. So I think it comes down to who do you like more? Is it Johansson or is it Kesselring?
Right. And I mean, listen, I think we were pretty unbiased with the forward group. I mean, we did say they had a better forward group, but it's like, come on, Yzerplan. You got to build a better defense core than that if you want to compete. It's just not good enough. The big one is Ben Sherratt. Ben Sherratt as your first left defenseman is terrible. It's
all one big trickle-down effect from the Jake Wallman trade. It's just,
yes.
I know they're probably sick of hearing it, but it solved so many things if he's still on that roster. And it was just kind of a self-inflicted wound.
They paid to get rid of him, right?
They did pay, yeah, second-round pick they attached.
That's it. It's insane how that happened.
It's really insane. What do we think about the goalies? This one's tough.
I don't know. I feel
like John Gibson.
If you go off of last year, Gibson was better than Luukkonen.
Mm-hmm.
And Talbot was probably better than Lyon. But it's goalies, and I feel like it's like a same tier type of thing. Like, I think they have similar ceilings, and I feel like that's how you should grade goalies.
Yeah. I'd give a slight edge to Detroit just because of John Gibson, in my opinion. Remember last episode how I ranked the Bruins goalies? I think I'd kind of rank this the same way. I'd say that the Red Wings have the better starter, but the Sabres have the better backup. But backup, like we said, though, it's a wash.
Like, Talbot was good. He was good for them last year, if I remember correctly. Like, I don't know. Like, I think, for example, when we compared the Bruins to them, it's Alex Lyon versus Jonas Korpisalo. And I think Cam Talbot, I would comfortably take him over Korpisalo, for example. So
yeah, I honestly think it's just a wash, or like you said, it's same tier. Like, I don't think one group is definitely better than the other.
Agreed. All right. I think that's basically, we feel that Detroit's a lot safer option at forward, but I think the Sabres definitely have room to elevate them above theirs. I think we clearly think the defense on the Sabres side of things is superior, and then goaltending is just kind of a wash. So it's definitely an interesting comparison. I know, Detroit finished, 7 points? Yeah. The Sabres had 79 points last season. Detroit had 86. I think these are two teams that, going in, they're pretty, same tier E.
Pretty similar, yeah.
I feel like it's just hard to deny that. And I know that, the Red Wings have finished ahead the last two seasons. But going into next year, I think, where do we think the Detroit Red Wings will end up? They had 86 last year. I'm kind of feeling a similar spot. I feel like 86, 87, 88 is just what that team, I know they had 91 2 years ago, but it just feels like they're kind of destined for that. And I think for them, it definitely comes down to how Gibson does. If Gibson is what he was in Anaheim last year, 450 games, yeah, that team can hit 90, 92, 94 points and get in. But if Gibson's no different than what they've gotten out of Talbot or Lyon in recent seasons, I think they're destined for another high 80s, mid 80s finish. I think that's going to be the difference, especially because Gibson's going to have his work cut out for him with that
I was
defense
gonna
group.
say, how far do you think he could really,
Yeah.
unless he has like a Vesna type season? I mean, that defense is not doing him many favors. I would agree. I think they finished somewhere around like the mid 80s. I think their absolute ceiling, I don't think they break 90 with this roster.
I think their absolute ceiling, they definitely could. They showed that 2 years ago, and they're on a similar tier. And 2 years ago, Raymond wasn't as good as he is now. They didn't have Marco Casper back then. I do feel like 88, 89 points. It's just kind of where I think they'll be. But they'll be in the playoff race. They'll be in it. They'll be a team to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will be.
Yeah, like I don't think we're pretty confident Boston. If Jeremy Swayman doesn't hold up his end of the bargain, like that team is potentially McKenna bound. I don't see a scenario where the Red Wings end up in that situation.
Yeah, the forward group's a little too solid for something like that to happen.
Mm-hmm. So where do we think the Sabres finish above them then? Like, what's our final point projection? Because I think we guessed Bruins, right? I think we guessed their point projection.
Did we give them points, or did we just say like a standing?
Maybe we did say place in the division.
I think that makes more sense.
I think we were like 76. Do we feel like more or less?
I thought we said 76.
Red Wings, 86 points, more or less.
Less, but not by much.
I'm going to say more, but not by much.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they just scream kind of upper mid 80s to me. I'll just say they stick at 86. They'll have another year there.
They scream mid. Like
it's not.
They're just not in that next tier. They haven't made the next step, I don't think. I think I was saying it about the forward group, and I think they have a very high floor, but I think their ceiling is a lot lower compared to some of the other teams that we'll be talking about. I mean, I think the Canadians have a much higher ceiling. Any of the other teams above us obviously do, but I can't see them having like a crazy year.
I think Boston's our pick for 8th in the division.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, not a lot of debate there. Do they finish ahead of Montreal or Ottawa? Or anybody else in the division?
I don't know,
if
man.
You have a hot take that Tampa or Toronto falls off. Probably not. It's probably like it still is like it's us, it's Detroit, it's Montreal, and it's Ottawa's probably gotten out of that group a little bit, but you never know. Do they finish ahead of the Canadians, let's say?
But where are the Canadians finishing?
Well, I guess that's the fun. Unless you have Montreal making it again.
I don't know, man. Whenever we do our Canadians episode,
that's next. They're next up.
I guess I'll preface by saying that I think Detroit's going to finish ahead of the Canadians.
Wow. And you guessed lower than 86 points?
Yep.
That's kind of crazy. I don't.
Montreal is coming. That city's going to.
I don't agree with that.
I'm going to get called so many names.
I think I agree with that.
This episode.
I do think if Montreal steps back, like they step back. I mean,
they step back hard, yeah.
Fair.
I think, Montreal had a minus 20 goal differential.
Exactly.
Detroit had a minus 21. The Sabres also had a minus 20. So, the Sabres had the same goal differential and finished with 12 less points. So, it's possible for them to step. I don't think they'll go below 80, but Montreal's sort of. I think there's definitely some volatility there. I just think it was funny from Christian's perspective. He took lower than 86, which at the very least means 85, and he has Montreal finishing with less than 85.
I said lower than 86, but not by much, so I could have meant 85 exactly.
Yeah. So that just means, Montreal could be closer to 80.
Yeah.
Really close to 80. So.
Well, we'll see next episode.
I don't think it's a hot take. I know Montreal fans will definitely have some thoughts on that.
The
French Canadians are going to come for my head.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, we'll wait till next week to get there. But other than that, yeah, Detroit Red Wings, solid, safe team. But we do think they are still definitely one probably big addition or one or two defensive additions away from finally hitting that playoff mark. But we've been wrong before. That's certainly for sure. Recent history would show the Red Wings finish above the Sabres again, even if I don't think that's the case this season.
Just because I said that they're getting less than 86 points doesn't mean I'm saying that the Sabres are going to be like, oh, we're going to get like 95.
I don't believe you.
All it takes is a renaissance year for Gibson, and they're right there. So
it's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And all it takes is one a little sophomore slump from a few Canadians players to take a pretty big step back.
It will be interesting with Gibson because I think every single year he's come out of the gate hot, and then last year was the only year he didn't really fade. So it will be interesting to see if he starts he goes 8-1-1 in his first 10 games with Detroit, and then does the wear and tear get to him? I guess to kind of add to that conversation, but we've discussed that enough. I think we've given Detroit enough love. I think we're pretty complimentary of them.
I think we're fair.
I don't think any of our assessment, we're probably harsher on the defense than they might be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're very complimentary of the forwards. I think the goalie, we definitely see the upside. So
yeah, I mean, we said that the forward group is better, and the goaltending was a wash, if not
probably,
better.
Yeah, if not better, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
This does not mean I'm
congratulations. You're better than the Buffalo Sabres.
It just doesn't mean I'm complimenting the Yzer plan. It has not worked. It has failed.
No. Yeah, it's definitely failed so far. But
yeah,
obviously, I think the one thing we didn't talk about is if a guy like Nate Danielson, maybe he makes the roster out at camp. I mean, that's somebody we talked about making it last year. Carter Mazer, there's guys that could maybe surprise, but we'll just have to wait and see. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Sabres vs. the Atlantic. Like we said, next week we're taking on Les Canadiens. See you next time.